I'm Random Stranger, and I wanted to show the 25 games that were in Taito Memories II Gekan. It's the fourth game in the Taito Memories series, and since they've already had about 80 games in the previous ones, they're kind of running low on ideas. This first game is Field Goal, which is supposed to be a football game. As you can see, it's just a breakout clone. I'm going to try to play one complete game of each of them, which is why this video is a bit long. The PlayStation 2's analog control doesn't really work very well as a substitute for a paddle. It's okay on this game. It becomes a serious problem with some of the other ones in here, which probably wouldn't play well with a paddle to begin with, and are even worse without it. The object of this game is solely to rack up the points. If you clear out a row or bounce off the back wall, then you get extra points. See, there's not a whole complete circle of football helmets, I guess is what they're supposed to be. Once one disappears on the far side, it gets spit out the other. Well, that's enough of this game. Now, Taito brought games from other countries to Japan, including Phoenix, which, if you're not familiar with it, is just a basic Galaxian clone. Although I suppose, in fairness, it was in development at about the same time as Galaxian. Personally, I've never been very fond of this game. It is the first video game, or supposedly the first video game with a boss. If I played all the way to the 5th stage, there would be a UFO with an enemy inside that I'd have to defeat. One of the big features in Phoenix is that your spaceship can put up a force field to block bullets. But I'm just not reacting very fast, and it's not that great. So here's Polaris. Their attempt to do Space Invaders, except with a submarine. You can tell there isn't an awful lot of high-quality stuff so far, although later on, they do get some of the more cult games that really improve things. Or at least have a better set of games. With these enemies cleared out, have to try to destroy that blue plane. That green sub at the bottom can never be destroyed. Alright, let's move on to Great Swordsman, which we're still not into the interesting games yet, though this one's kind of a proto-fighter. It's from 1984, and you're just going to see the fencing stages, unfortunately. It's very slow-paced. When you do an attack and get close, you do that little pace back and forth. There's 3 attack buttons, high, low, and middle, and you have to hold down the button for an extended period to complete the attack. If you let go, you reset back to the normal position. There's 3 stages of the fencing. You won't be seeing all of them. I cut at least that stuff out. And then it goes into other stages such as gladiatorial combat. But they all essentially play the same. You see both sides get points when it connects like that. First person to 5 points wins. You get to enter your own name at the beginning, which is why mine is TRRR. When it mishit the button initially, I decided it wasn't worth it to go back and fix. Four to 4, just barely pulled it out. We're gonna kind of skip ahead now to the dramatic conclusion of the next bout. Double hit. What happens when it's tied? Apparently they give ties to the player. But that's enough of that. Let's go on to Sea Fighter Poseidon. This is a rather strange shooter. You always start out attached to that Sea-Doo that fires torpedoes along, but if it gets hit, you can disconnect from it and then swim off on your own. Your goal on each stage is to locate the rescued men, but if for some reason you don't rescue one, eventually there's a boss at the end of it. Next stage, it'll add one more man to the group to rescue. So with this, Taito Memories II Gekan, you might think that Taito had to have run out of games to put into collections, that's 100 of them. Well, as it turns out, they made around 300 arcade games total in their history, so they still had even more they could go back to. But a lot of them, they really kind of were scraping the bottom of the barrel for this collection, for things that were interesting or memorable. They made a lot of arcade sports games that didn't get collected. Most of their pre-Space Invaders stuff, in fact I should say all of their pre-Space Invaders stuff isn't included in these collections. Yeah, for some reason couldn't pick that man up, and I missed him, which means this life is going all the way to the boss. There's a chance to see a few of the other features of the game. Because, for the most part, the Sea-Doo thing is kind of neat, but it feels uninspired. Why play this shooter when there's hundreds of other more interesting ones? something that you notice is if you play through these Taito games in order, it's kind of an evolution of their graphics technology. This is these color palette and sprite detail. It's very indicative of their stuff from about 1983 to 1985. Later on, they'll darken the palette, improve the resolution a little bit, say with Gyrodyne. A really horrible shooter. You can see the difference immediately here. A lot more fine detail in the background. Unfortunately, that fine detail is probably the worst part. Those bullets are just about impossible to see. You can only hit guys at a certain range as well, which makes playing this really frustrating. Gyrodyne got a home port for the Famicom, and it is not well regarded. Even more so than the original arcade game. I think those are supposed to be little troops on the ground, or maybe beachgoers that are getting shot there. Yeah, just dealing without shooting over or under people constantly is massively frustrating. There's only one attack button. Everything's just rendered far too small. It really is an unpleasant game to play. But I would like to point out the art on the side. For games where they use a different aspect ratio, or significantly different aspect ratio than the television screen, they add art from the game, from arcade flyers and the like, as borders. Those little flickering spots are apparently troops in the trees that are nearly impossible to see. Well, I'm glad that's over with. Let's go on to Buggy Challenge, which isn't a huge improvement. This is actually the least popular game at my local arcade. Yes, my local arcade actually has Buggy Challenge in it. You're kind of in an open area. Your goal is to just follow the star. There is no Messiah at the end of it. It's pretty forgiving with the time limit, unlike some games that we'll be seeing coming up. You can crash quite a bit and still make some progress. Not spectacular, but a bit. I feel like this is more of an attempt to cash in on what Sega was doing. You can see it's kind of pseudo Mode 7, and you'll see that a lot in the upcoming games. Not Mode 7, excuse me. Super Scaler would be Sega's artwork. Yeah, if I go off the path, there's a big arrow that flashes telling me which way the star is. But it's really not much of a driving game. Typhoon Gal, on the other hand, is the first game in this collection that I actually find amusing. It's another proto-fighter, very similar to Karate Champ in style, I should say, although it's not a situation quite the same. She's actually got a life bar, but she does different moves when you press different combinations of directions and stick. I love that one. Why can't more fighting games have that as a move? And along the top you can see there's a little army of men that'll come out one after the other and fight her. It has a bit of a judo theme, which is why there's such an emphasis on throws. With my life down all the way like that, I was just a matter of time until I was thrown and lost a life. But you get 3 tries. And when they turn blue like that, it means that the next throw will take them out. One more life to go. And this is the last regular fighter of the stage. You can see there's a kind of a fun combination of moves there. All sorts of different throws and grapples. And now the master. Yeah, that Typhoon Girl's actually fun to play. Not necessarily my favorite, but Metal Soldier Isaac 2 kind of keeps this up. It's, again, pretty interesting, or at least it was to me. You can see it's built kind of on the same system as Gyrodyne was. You've got 2 attacks with your robot. The little laser beams, which can hit guys in the air, and the fist, which smashes guys into the ground. And your progress is handled by you walking. It's not an auto-scrolling situation. When you take enough damage here, which, well, it's going down at the moment. When it reaches 10 damage, there you go, the robot explodes and you just become its flying head. But some of the buildings will let you recover the robot. So there we go, back on the robot body. It's pretty fast-paced. They keep throwing lots of guys out at you because it's really easy to recover, so they have to keep the action hard on you. Those towers actually mark the border of the stage. Running into them does damage, so obviously that was a bad idea. So you can see right back on the robot, ready to run around and shoot stuff. Unfortunately, the terrain doesn't get very differentiated. It's pretty bland, like that for the whole way through. And as you move further in, it does seem like enemies wind up doing more damage than they did in before. The flying head's a lot more maneuverable than the robot body, which gives you a chance to survive until you reach it. You can see each of those shots were 4 damage. They weren't hitting quite as hard early on. Now, one interesting thing about this game is instead of going just to the high score, we get an ending for our game over. Remember, you cannot touch his heart. Alright, we're into 1986 now with Halley's Comet. This is another shooter, and one that has a pretty nifty gimmick, I think. On the far right, you can see at the bottom is my ship leaving Earth, flying up to the comet at the top, and there's a percentage, and that's how much damage the Earth has taken because I've let things get through. So you have to destroy everything quickly. One complication in this game is that shooting those little rocks will release the power-ups, but they go off the screen pretty fast. So if you smash one open while you're fighting a bunch of guys because you're trying to protect the Earth, it can be tough to collect the items before they get away from you. The Earth's up to almost 20% damage because I let those things get by me. You can get a ton of options, which are the little things that follow the ships, like that, along with the big spread cannon. You can really fill up the screen with bullets in this game. We have our first boss here, which is a pretty basic pattern. Eventually, if I kept going with this game, I'd reach the comet and I'd have to fight a boss there, and then it'd reset and I'd do the whole thing again. So it's more like Star Force than, say, Gradius, which Konami had recently released. You see the comet's also closing in on Earth. If it gets there, then that's also an immediate game over. Making the player have to destroy everything that they encounter makes this a pretty difficult game. Much more so than a lot of the early scrolling shooters like this. And when you get a game over, you get to see the Earth get destroyed in this game. Alright, now there's no English title on the screen here, but this did get a US release. This is Land, Sea, Air Squad, which was Taito's answer to Irem's Ikari Warriors games, which were just becoming big at the time. This game kind of differentiates itself from Ikari Warriors because your Land, Sea, Air Squad member will have to jump into different vehicles. actually like this game a lot better than Ikari Warriors. Ikari Warriors has always been a pain to control because of the rotating joystick. Well, I feel this one plays much better. There's always a lot going on. It's fun to switch the different vehicles around constantly. I've actually beaten this game in the arcade before, but it's been about 20 years, oh, more than 20 years since I played, probably closer to 25 at the point that I recorded this, so. Oh, more than 25 even. And there's even bosses on this game. It does allow for 2 simultaneous players, like Ikari Warriors. Okay. Next up is a game that wasn't very popular in Japan, but was very popular in the US.
Operation Wolf.
Yeah, Operation Wolf. This was an actual gun game in the arcade, where the players held onto submachine guns.
Make your selection.
Or, I guess, plastic toys shaped like submachine guns, firing at the screen. The port to the PlayStation 2 doesn't really hold up very well. It doesn't have the fine control necessary. You're going to see here I'm going to struggle to hit the weapons and grenades that I need. Oddly enough, the sequel was on one of the previous Taito Memories discs. So Operation Thunderbolt was available before Operation Wolf. I'm just shooting around that. Even though I found this to be a pain to control, this is probably the best home port of Operation Wolf. The reason why is that the other option for you is essentially the NES version, and that is really bad.
The raid on the powder magazine was successful. You have a new supply of ammunition. Make your selection with the gun.
There I go. But because this is such a popular game, let's go one more time around, huh? I have to be frank here, I'm not really a fan of Operation Wolf. I feel that the arcade game was pretty shallow. Yeah, it kind of follows a pattern that a lot of light gun games would. Following up, like the Terminator 2 game definitely follows the style of Operation Wolf. But it always felt lacking to me somehow. I'm running through the life here very quickly anyways.
You have sustained a lethal injury. Sorry, but you are finished here.
Alright, let's move on to the most transparent knockoff in this disc. Full Throttle. Can you tell what game this is based on? So obviously, they were desperately grasping for some of that Outrun money with this game. But it is no Outrun. For one thing, it is not forgiving at all with the time limit. One mistake and that's it. The game is over. You see, I've even used up all the nitros trying to make the time here. And you'll see at the end, it's I'm close but no cigar. Probably about 5 to 10 seconds back from the checkpoint. The car is supposed to be a Mazda RX-7, which I guess is just another downgrade from Outrun's Lamborghini. And it's not a fun version of that game. On the other hand, they greatly improved it with the next year with Chase HQ. You'll see it follows a lot of the same basic formula, but the game's a lot more forgiving. And it has a different goal, so it doesn't feel like just a cheap knockoff of something that a better game company was doing. I used to think that you should go into low gear on this section for better traction on the dirt, but it turns out it doesn't matter at all. You can see I haven't used any of my nitros at all. I've crashed once, but I'm still going to catch up with the car just in the nick of time here. I never found that the home versions of Chase HQ really lived up to the arcade game. Even playing this with the joystick on the PlayStation 2 just doesn't quite feel right, although it certainly controls well enough if you wanted to play the game. Here, finally using some nitros to finish off the level. Alright, the murderer is apprehended. Fortunately, I can't remember what the second guy was supposed to have done, but I'm sure he's a bad person. Alright, gotta use the turbo this time to try to catch the guy. Couldn't quite reach him. He was just outside my grasp there. Let's let the time run out on this one. Oh no, he's escaped! Okay, Plump Pop. Plump Pop is bad, to put it mildly. It's supposed to be played with a dial, except in this case, of course, I'm on the PlayStation controller, and the control is even worse. But even with the dial, how are you supposed to catch that? The kid bounces randomly off the UFOs at the top. You can see, you can't tell which way he's going to bounce until he's moving, and he moves fast. So after about 4 attempts to get a decent showing here, I thought I'll just use the continues to get through the stage and we'll see how long it goes. Because this is really disastrously bad. Now watch this. This is as fast as I can move with the PlayStation controller. Have no chance of catching him. This is effectively unplayable. It wouldn't be fun in the arcade, it's even worse at home like this. Now, as far as I can tell, Plump Pop never came to the US. Can't say that we were really missing anything. And that guy will stop me from catching the kid, but I can always hop over him. There. But he drops right off. Look at that's just a mess. Even if I could move properly, that wouldn't be great. Let's go to something much more fun. This is Rainbow Island's extra version. It was a limited release that they modified the enemies in Rainbow Islands, and they're now robots. Supposedly these are guys from the Darius series, but I don't know. They don't look a lot like the Darius robots to me. And when I think Darius enemies, I think giant fish. Or those silly giant robot heads that just fly around on their own. That guy up there doesn't look at all like a Darius enemy to me. It's not even facing the right direction. It is a bit harder than the standard Rainbow Islands. The enemies are much larger and harder to trap underneath your rainbows. Their hit box extends a bit beyond them as well, like I just clipped myself outside the nose of that flapping thing. And here I had trouble telling that gun was part of the foreground, rather than just a background object. But it still looks Rainbow Islands. It's pretty neat. It's actually included on... this version of Rainbow Islands is actually included on the Genesis port of Rainbow Islands. So if you wanted to play it, there's a code to unlock this mode. As before, you still have to collect all 7 rainbow gems to unlock the special treasure at the end of the stage. But it is much harder to do on this one. Okay, Volfide. Or Volfeed, I suppose, is the way it's pronounced. I like this game a lot. It got released in the US, though, as Super Kicks. It is part of the Kicks series. But Super Kicks is a different arcade game. So, if you entrap those little bricks, then they become power-ups for you, which is a new addition to the game. What I'm trying to do with my first couple lives here is show off a little bit by creating a more complicated trap for the monster. It's a bit riskier strategy. See, it's just like in Kicks, your goal is to enclose areas. When you close 75% of the play field, then you move on to the next stage. You constantly move at the edge of the enclosed area. When you're on the edge, you don't take damage from most things. But when you're moving, you're vulnerable. So at this point, I've decided I need to at least demonstrate how you enclose stuff properly. See, I'm just cutting off big chunks now. This is how you play the game normally if you aren't trying to go for some giant bonuses. Got a speed up power up there. Looking for a good angle here to get in there, but that many enemies just bouncing around, it's really hard to find a spot. Alright, Night Striker. Another one of Taito's Mode 7 knockoff. Mode 7, I'm still saying that. Super Scalar knockoffs. But this one I think is actually pretty fun. It plays a lot like Space Harrier, except with more environmental hazards and kind of an outrunish level layout. I think I'd still rather play Space Harrier, or even Thunderblade, which I suppose this is a lot closer to, although it doesn't have any speed controls. This is strictly you fly along and just shoot like mad. You can see it really wears the Space Harrier influences on its sleeve with those shots.
Warning, targets approaching.
I think I would have preferred to have played Space Harrier, but that many enemies just bouncing around, it's really hard to find a spot. So at this point, I've decided I need to at least demonstrate how you enclose stuff properly. arcade version actually had a moving cabinet version available to it, where the whole thing tilted around as you moved, and you sat down in it. It was very nifty. Factory sounded a little bit more interesting to me than Canal. Although you'd think that you wouldn't want the factory floor like this on your main road. And here, it looks even more like Space Harrier to me. Look at those guys. Those guys are straight out of Space Harrier. So you can see the greater environmental hazards in this game.
Warning, targets approaching.
Got an evil forklift.
Kill destroyed.
I like that the stages are super short as well, because it means the challenges are constantly shifting. Tunnel, again, going for something that hopefully sounded a little bit more interesting than the sea, but I probably should have gone to the sea. Since what's the difference between tunnel and factory, really? Now here, it got pretty difficult for me to tell where the obstacles were. So I'm going to run into a lot of them. Like, which side was that one on? Left or right? I couldn't tell until I was already too late for me to move.
Destroyed. Destroyed. Danger. Danger. You have lost your shield. Out of control.
It says I'm out of control, but I actually still have control there. But yeah, it's a fun shooter. Not, like I said, not quite up to the quality of Sega's offerings at the time, but certainly not bad. Unfortunately, we hit this one then.
Let's get to work, Battle Shark.
He said, "Do it, Battle Shark." This is a submarine game along the lines of Operation Wolf. In the arcade, you look through a periscope and slide it around. You have a limited number of torpedoes that you can fire that are gradually reloaded over time. On this first stage, nothing attacks you. It can be considered more of a practice stage. I'm out of torpedoes, but I can still shoot the guns that I picked up. Oh, hey, that one guy did shoot at me. Huh.
To those on board, destroy the enemy's base on the bottom of the sea. Objective, mobile base Galvado.
Roger.
And here's where the control aspects really start getting to me. You can move it the crosshair extremely slowly in the version I'm playing, and it becomes a real issue I can't really catch up or lead the shots well as a result, which means I'm firing excess torpedoes, which means I'm running on empty a lot of the time. I think he's firing sharks at me. At least that's what it looked like from that angle. Just limiting the player's bullets like that just isn't fun. Not an arcade-style shooter, at least. Here I get to use my torpedoes against helicopters. The next hit will do it. That aircraft carrier didn't even get on screen fully. Alright, let's zip through this just so we can see the ending splash. Oh. Okay, final blow. Probably one of the less interesting arcade boxing games. And considering arcade boxing isn't really that hot, that's saying something.
In this corner, wearing red trunks.
You've got a few different characters to choose from, but I don't think there's really a difference between any of them.
In this corner, wearing blue trunks and weighing 195.5 pounds, the Miracle Fighter, Dynamite Joe. Right. That's it. Go get King. Yeah.
There's two buttons for different types of punches, one button for defense. And depending on which direction you're pushing when you hit that defense button determines what you do. You're constantly getting into those hugs and getting broken up by the ref, which is just a waste of time in an arcade game. It slows down the pace of the action. It makes it duller.
Hey, Joe. Hey. Hey. Give him the left. That's it. Go get King. King. Hey. Hey. King. Give him the left. Yeah. Joe. King. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hey. Hey. That's it. Go get him.
I'm trying to think if there's ever been a decent arcade boxing game, and maybe Nintendo's Punch-Out games, but I'm not super fond of the arcade versions of those either. He's saved by the bell and is handed the win on decision after one round. So, now we get to an interesting shooter, I guess is the best way of putting it. Master of Weapon. Look at how long it takes to draw out that title screen. Yes, it did say September 11th. I feel like this shooter should appeal to me more than it does. I've been trying to get into it a little bit. It's got a nice array of weaponry, good layout of enemies. It's very difficult. Look at just how many guys it throws at you right off the bat. It's instead of ramping up, it's trying to kill you. And yes, that is a skyscraper that you shoot down with your plane and make it collapse on September 11th. I feel like something's missing in this game. It's just not connecting with me like I feel like it should. It is, perhaps it's just because it is phenomenally difficult. Mega Blast, on the other hand, shows no sign of being a good game. But I love the attract mode on this, so I got to let it play out here. You need to know the story. Yeah, so an alien planet has stolen all of our women, and you are flying off to get them back. As it plays Beethoven. So, the game always starts you out, you're surrounded by those 4 little pods constantly, and shoot from all directions. The pods are powered up separately. You won't see a lot of power-ups, unfortunately, in the video. I played through the first boss at least, demonstrated, and there just aren't a lot of power-ups on the first stage. It felt to me like they said, well, what if we make a game where you just shoot everywhere at once, and then make it hard to play anyways? So you can see these things are just spitting out these homing missiles that you have to dodge constantly. The terrain forces you into narrow spots all the time. The green item was a shield, and those attach to different spots on the ship. You can see on the front and on the top there. You gotta go in that top section, but there's not really a lot of room to dodge. I wanted to play this out to the at least the first boss so you could see it. There's some people who suggest that this may be Taito's attempt at a light parody game like Parodius. Personally, I don't see it. I think that this is a sincere attempt to do something awesome. Look at, you're just fighting a pair of legs. A pair of robot legs. They're apparently attached to a statue that doesn't even move. And the lack of power-ups that I was collecting here early on, at least, just didn't hold a lot of appeal for me. If I could switch out all sorts of different guns on each of the pods, I would be more interested. But like a lot of shooters, power-ups are scarce, and then if you die, they're gone. Here's something a little bit more manageable as a boss, but still managed to catch me there. But enough of that. Alright, now, this is Thunder Fox. It's a side-scrolling action game with an absurd style. No, it's not Contra. No matter how much it looks like it is. And as the title screen says, this was made in 1990. And I'm looking at this, it feels like something from 1985. This is not what arcade games were doing in 1990. Well, what arcades were doing in 1990 was dying horribly, and this game certainly wasn't helping them out. You pick up weapons from just about everybody. Use up their ammo very quickly, and then go back to just knifing people in the stomach. So it's a situation where you might as well use the bullets as you pick them up, because there will be plenty more. This is more like Data East Bad Dudes or Russian Attack, but by the time Bad Dudes was released, Bad Dudes was a throwback. And that was 3 years before this game. Grab some grenades here before I go on. The truck can shoot kind of in an arc in front of you or an arc behind you. If you get bumped, you get knocked out of the Jeep. Frankly, it just feels silly. Well, at least use a grenade, but it doesn't really seem to be very effective. We've got robots out of nowhere. That sit on you and just injure you over and over again. Knife that tank. Knife it up. It's not a very fun game, and it's pretty basic. Now, Warrior Blade on the other hand, is a pretty interesting title. Technically it's Rastan 3, but it plays a lot to me like the Capcom Dungeons & Dragons brawlers. And you'll notice the odd screen size. That's because this was built off of something very similar to the Darius games or the Ninja Warrior games that Taito released, where it's lots of screens, 3 of them in this case, side by side in the arcade cabinet, which gives it an extra wide screen. You come back and you have to visit each of those 4 locations in turn. I chose the tower because once I'm at the top of the tower, it's interesting. And also, you get to see me fly a dragon. And they fight guys with swords who are also on dragon back. The game's packed with all sorts of cool little things like this. It really is a fun brawler. And obviously it allows for 3 simultaneous players. That is a long name. Right, now I'm afraid this stage takes a little while, but the ending's worth getting all the way through. So, check out the different moves here. There's a lot of variety. All three of the characters are very different. You can actually buy equipment at some points. Which is, you know, what the coins I'm collecting would be used for.
Ich bin dein Gegner.
Follow this path.
I definitely like it better than to use someone I was praising just a little while ago. It's much better than Sega's beat 'em ups. Never was a fan of the Golden Axe series. And this is much better than those. It's not as slow or clunky as they were.
Ich lösche dich aus. Verdammt!
We'll be at the top of the tower relatively soon here. You only get one life in this game. And though obviously you can continue as much as you like.
Nicht lebend heraus. Es gibt keinen Ausweg.
The aggressiveness of the enemies does scale up over time. So because I chose this as the first stage, they're not really bad yet. But if I came here as the fourth stage, these guys would be all over me. I love it. I kicked this weapon out of his hand. You can do that for just about everybody.
Ich hack dich in Stücke. Schere dich zum Teufel.
Follow this path.
Alright, we are at the top. Let's check out this boss, which is terrific.
Mach, dass du bekommst.
It's a giant flaming skeleton with a cow head. I love it. It's so absurd. It's amazing. And the other bosses, they're similarly over the top. I have a lot of fun with this game. Enough that I may come back and just record the whole process through it. Although if I'm going to do that, I'll probably do it with 3 players. I wanted to show the default name here as well because this is amusing. Changed it to Wrestler. So one more game on the disc, and then we are done with Taito Memories II Gekan. As Bub just said, this is Bubble Symphony, a sequel to Bubble Bobble. I've never been very good at Bubble Bobble. The level design always makes my head hurt. Took Bob because nobody ever takes Bob. Bob gets no respect. So just like classic Bubble Bobble, you spit out bubbles, put guys in them, bop them, they turn into fruit, you collect it. Now here, it's going to give me the choice of 3 doors, though. you actually get to some control over what stages you're going to play. A lot of this stuff is going to look familiar if you've played the other Bubble Bobble games. Well, you scroll to the side now rather than up. Look at this, is literally a Bubble Bobble stage. The one where they introduced the concept of flushing guys out. I thought I was going to catch him with the water, and I didn't, but oh well. Yeah, unfortunately, I've just never been great at Bubble Bobble, so I'm not going to show off anything cool here. Although I suppose at this point in the video it's also fortunate since it won't go on much longer. This is the kind of thing that always gives me a headache in Bubble Bobble. You can jump up through any floor and then go up or down through the ceiling. But it's still... I always have to think about what I'm doing. And stopping to think about what you're doing with those is just a recipe for instant game over. Like that. Well, that wraps up Taito Memories II Gekan. It's an interesting mix of games that, for the most part, we didn't get in the US. Certainly, the more obscure games on Taito's part